the Federal Reserve System, sovereignty, maritime debt, and national hypothecation. 1. Institutional sovereignty and maritime jurisdiction. The Federal Reserve System functions as a sovereign, quasi-private authority distinct from the constitutional federal government. Structurally, it operates as a maritime lender and underwriter, governed by principles of Admiralty and maritime law. This jurisdiction mandates specific performance obligations, particularly in relation to the repayment of interest, which mirrors maritime insurance premiums. Under this legal regime, the lender assumes the underwriting risk, while the debtor is compelled to perform financially. Further, the concept of hypothecation permits assets to be pledged as security without transfer of possession, creating a framework of latent collateralization across broad asset classes. 2. Gold-based interest and emitted principal payments. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 authorized the issuance of credit money by the Federal Reserve Bank, but with a condition: interest was to be paid in gold. Notably, the legislation omitted any provision for the repayment of principal. This omission established a structural debt model wherein obligations remain perpetual, and repayment efforts are confined to interest alone. This unique feature solidified the Federal Reserve's role as an enduring creditor while the federal United States effectively became a permanent debtor. 3. Hypothecation of public and private assets. Prior to 1913, Americans often held allodial title to property, ownership that was free of encumbrance. With the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, this paradigm shifted dramatically. The federal United States hypothecated the entirety of its assets, including land, labor, and future productivity, to the Federal Reserve. Trustees of the system retained legal title, while citizens, registered through instruments such as the birth certificate, were designated as beneficiaries. By 1933, this hypothecation extended even further to include all present and future properties and labor of U.S. citizens, effectively securitizing national productivity. 4. Collateralization of national debt and human capital. To support the issuance of credit by the Federal Reserve, the federal government was compelled to assign collateral to its creditors. Lacking tangible state-owned assets, it pledged the private property, labor, and birthright of its citizenry. Even public lands, including national parks and federal territories, were securitized. The result was the commodification of U.S. citizens' economic output, with birth certificates serving as instruments of collateral transfer. The true beneficiaries became international financial interests, with the American populace unwittingly cast as economic sureties. 5. Feudal parallels and the erosion of allodial title. In this model, modern America has regressed into a feudal framework wherein the Federal Reserve Bank operates as sovereign landlord. The average citizen is reduced to a tenant or economic sharecropper. Whereas land once conferred sovereignty, it is now perpetually encumbered. The American Revolution's rejection of feudal land tenure has thus been reversed. Legal ownership remains with financial institutions, while citizens possess mere equitable interest, revocable through foreclosure or asset forfeiture. 6. Structural bankruptcy and economic subjugation. The American populace, deprived of financial autonomy, now faces a generational burden of debt that remains fundamentally unpayable. National bankruptcy is not only fiscal but ideological, encompassing leadership, creditworthiness, and moral authority. Most citizens are deeply mortgaged, with few tangible assets remaining. The socioeconomic structure compels more labor for diminishing returns, a hallmark of systemic insolvency. The informed silence of public officials suggests complicity or cowardice. 7. Legacy of debt and economic enslavement. This arrangement constitutes a form of economic warfare, undeclared but pervasive. America's debt has been monetized and privatized, with its repayment now embedded in every transaction and every labor hour. Few recognize that their productivity has been pre-collateralized. The children of today will inherit this matrix of fiscal bondage, absent reform. The call to awaken is not merely rhetorical, it is a necessity rooted in law, sovereignty, and the enduring rights of the individual.